Do you know that baseball is not only a game, it is a memory of a lifetime? Some are happy and some are sad. To each victory that makes up the legacy of a team, there is a night that fans regret to forget. The attractiveness of this sport is that it is unpredictable, in the notion that the strongest team will fall down in a heartbeat. Any fan base of MLB has experienced that sting. The heartbreaking defeat, the choking defeat, the heartbreaking loss that is felt today, many years later. It is the account of the most painful moment in the history of all the fan bases of the MLB. 30 teams, 30 heartbreaks, one game we will never quit loving. This video is going to be very informative, so let's get into it. Arizona Diamondbacks. The Arizona Diamondbacks are one of the youngest teams in Major League Baseball who made their debut in the league, but they instantly became successful. The World Series win in 2001 over the Yankees' legendary status, but what followed next was a touch to the reality that baseball glory is temporary. In 2017, it can be fast-forwarded into a team full of hope, swagger, and power hitters, such as Paul Goldschmidt. The Diamondbacks were beaten by the Los Angeles Dodgers in the NLDS after a thrilling wild-card victory over Colorado. To Phoenix fans, it was a bitter realization. They had been basking in the excitement of October again when it was brought to their memories how fast it can be washed away. The enthusiasm of 2001 was remote, and in its place were disappointment and a feeling that it was over. That is a bitter stain. Evidence that in baseball, the peaks never last indefinitely. Atlanta Braves. In the case of the Atlanta Braves, there is a date of heartbreak. That is October 23rd, 1996. Game 4 of the World Series. The Yankees were 6-0 behind the Braves. It was all over until it was. Baseball is a mean game that loves a turn of the tables, and that night, the Yankees staged a comeback that reversed the fortunes. They mugged the game, reversed the tide, and stole the series. The Braves, who were at the brink of winning 2 championships in a row, saw their dynasty dreams crumble. Even in a history of playoff disappointments, that one downfall is memorable. It was more than a lost lead to Atlanta fans. It was the night the dynasty was born. It was a reminder of the fact that greatness in baseball is never guaranteed. Baltimore Orioles. The most painful point in the history of the Baltimore Orioles happened in 2016 during the AL wildcard game of the team with the Toronto Blue Jays. That was the year when the Orioles had one of the best bullpens in baseball, including Zach Britton, their invincible closer. However, when the match got into extra innings, Britton was sitting in the bullpen. Manager Buck Showalter had clung to inferior relievers until Edwin Encarnacion came to the plate and hit a walk-off home run, and so Baltimore died heart-stricken like that. The move to fail to utilize Britton was one of the most condemnable managerial decisions of the decade. To Orioles fans, it was not the defeat, but the realization that the best weapon of the team did not have the opportunity to battle. It is the type of injury that lasts as it did not necessarily need to occur. Boston Red Sox. Generations of fans of Red Sox have experienced what they referred to as the curse of the Bambino. There was no event that was more excruciatingly marked with that curse than Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. 1 out to go, 1 pitch to smash 30 years of frustration, and a normal ground ball dropped down Bill Buckner's legs. The Mets returned to win the game and series. That one play represented the lifetime heartbreak of Boston almost 2 decades. That shot of Buckner with his head bent low, the ball passing his face, is one of the most heartbreaks in the history of baseball, even today when he was at last redeemed. It was no mere mistake. It was a curse visible in a single play on the city. Chicago Cubs. The Cubs had 5 outs to go before they could appear in the World Series after a 58-year gap. Next came the nasty ball and the name of Steve Bartman. When Moises Alou sprang to attack the stands, Bartman grabbed out, the ball bounced off his hands, and then all was a commotion. It was not his fault as to what followed, but history does not give fairness a second thought. The Cubs began to unravel, letting 8 runs in the inning, and lost the series. Bartman was the scapegoat of the suffering generations. In the case of Chicago, this was not just a loss, but a sad extension of the century-long curse. That 2003 meltdown is still amongst the most heartbreaking heartbreaks in the history of the baseball field, despite having won it in 2016. Chicago White Sox. To the White Sox, defeat was not as bad as they were losing the opportunity to win. In the year 1994, they recorded the best record in baseball. Frank Thomas was in command, pitching was of the top level, and fans were sure that it was their time. Then, the players' strike hit. The season ended abruptly. None of them had any playoffs. None of them had closure. None of them had an opportunity to complete what they were about to do. It was not a field loss. It was a lost season. To a fan base that had been waiting decades to get another title, it was intolerable. That team never came out the same when baseball came back. It is still one of the great what-ifs on the history of the White Sox. Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds appeared invincible in the year 2012. They also led the NLDS over the San Francisco Giants 2-0. It only required one additional victory, 3 games at home, to achieve it. But baseball can be cruel. The Reds lost Game 3, and then Game 4, and Game 5 in agonizing heart breaches. What would have been a championship run ended with 3 consecutive losses at home. To Reds fans, it was not only the fall, but also the silence that followed. An observation to remember that irrespective of how strong you appear to be, October is callous. That series is still a deep scar, and it is the time of hope changed into heartbreak. Cleveland Guardians. The year 1997 was to be the year of Cleveland. They had endured decades of heartbreaks, and now they were 2 outs away from finishing decades of waiting. Jose Mesa, having pitched 2 games in advance of the Florida Marlins in Game 7 of the World Series, went out to finish off the game, but it slipped away. The Marlins tied it at 9th, and in extra innings, Edgar Renteria struck the single that broke the heart of Cleveland. The Marlins reveled, and the Indians marched out of the field defeated. The loss that has been experienced continues to characterize a franchise. Their close call in 2016 could not take away the pain of 1997, a year when the dream was so near you could taste it only to see it slip away into the darkness. Colorado Rockies' American imagination was taken by the 2007 Colorado Rockies. They swept through the postseason, becoming a sensation, with a streak that saw them winning 21 of 22 games and reaching their first ever World Series, Rocktober. But the magic ended there. They were swept by the Boston Red Sox in 4 games and were miles behind them in the score. And it was a bang back to reality to Denver fans. One, they were untouchable; the next, they were too big. The sweep itself still serves as an emblem of the wickedness of baseball, of how easy it can be to transform a dream into a nightmare. Detroit Tigers. The suffering of the Detroit Tigers consists of numerous chapters. However, 2013 is one of the most cruel ones. Game 2 in the ALCS versus Boston, the Tigers were 1 strike short of getting a series lead of 2. Then David Ortiz came on to bat, and in a roaring crowd, Fenway Park was shaking. Big Papi hit a grand slam to right. The tide turned in a minute. Boston subsequently won the series, and the Detroit reign of terror ended silently. To the fans of Tigers, this was not merely a defeat, but it was the moment they had lost their dynasty, which was never going to be. Houston Astros. The Houston Astros first experienced the taste of a heartbreak in 2005 before they had their first modern dynasty and all the controversy it brought forth. They were only able to get to the World Series. an accomplishment of pride to a long-suffering franchise, and were swept by the Chicago White Sox. Every match was tight, but every single bounce was on the wrong side. It was a lesson that the greatest history makers can disappoint even at the biggest stage. To the Astros fans, 2005 was both joyous and painful at the same time. A milestone that had misery wrapped around it, the type of loss that is not forgettable even after the redemption sets in. Kansas City Royals. The 2014 season of Kansas City Royals was a magical one, a team of destiny, fueled by hustle, defense, and energy. It was a one memorable moment during that year in the World Series against the Giants. It is the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, and the game is tied with a run on 3 RD. Alex Gordon, 90 feet near glory. Salvador Perez came out to conclude the game. Just like that, it was over. So close, yet so far. The next year followed with a title payoff, but the sight of Gordon standing impotently on the third base still represents the tragedy of 2014, the night Kansas City nearly rewrote its history. Los Angeles Angels. In the case of the Angels, it is wasted potential to which they are subjected to pain. They had one of the best rosters in decades in 2005 when they made it to the ALCS. However, against the Chicago White Sox, they were defeated. The starters of Chicago had pitched 4 consecutive complete games that buried the Angels' hopes in 5 days. Since that time, even with generational talent players such as Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, the Angels did not go to October glory again. To Anaheim fans, it is not only a series, but is the fact that the greatest players of their time did not even have the opportunity to win that they deserved. Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers have experienced heartbreaks before, but none as deep as the one in the World Series of 2017. Decades of history led the Dodgers to that point, a roster made with patience, talent, and faith. The playoff between the Houston Astros and the series lasted 7 games, each of which one team struck back the other in one of the most dramatic fall classics of all time. However, the Dodgers lost out in the end. To fans, this was heartbreaking, but it was later on realized that the tragedy is even more so when the sign-stealing scandal emerged. It was intolerable because they found themselves knowing that they had been defeated at least by lying. It was not pain about loss, but pain about being robbed. Even their 2020 title failed to take away the resentment of 2017, who was theirs to lose, only to turn out to be a wound that the time is unwilling to heal. Miami Marlins. In the case of the Miami Marlins, sadness is not about losing, but rather a tragedy that goes beyond the baseball game. Their star, Jose Fernandez, had passed away on September 25, 2016, in a boating accident. He was only 24 years old, young, electric, and the source of joy in a baseball field. Fernandez was the figure of the franchise, but he was the soul of it. His demise created an empty feeling that cannot be explained by statistics. Then the following night, teammate Dee Gordon opened the night with a home run, the first of his season, and wept as he circled the bases. This was the moment that captured the hearts of the Miami fans. Love of a player that was an embodiment of hope, taken away too early. There was no failure. There were no consecutive defeats. There was just great human loss that will always remain in the hearts of the Marlins and their fans. Milwaukee Brewers. In the case of Milwaukee, 2011 is a nightmare to be remembered. In that same year, the Brewers appeared like champions who were headed in the right direction. The team that captured the imagination of the city was driven by Prince Fielder and Ryan Braun. The NLCS with the St. Louis Cardinals was to be their time. However, since our Brewers lost the first 2 matches, they stalled out with their bats, and the pitcher disintegrated. The Cardinals then won 4 out of the next 5, thus terminating the dream run of Milwaukee. It was a sad loss, not merely as such, but as it was. That team would never again consist of the heart of it. The following years were characterized by narrow escapes, broken hearts, and postseason eliminations, but 2011 remains the year that slipped by. The season that might have rewritten the story of the franchise ended on a bitter note that October is not a month to make mistakes. Minnesota Twins. None of the fan base is familiar themselves with playoff pain like the Minnesota Twins do. 18 consecutive postseason defeats, the record that is hard to believe and is one of the greatest unbelievable streaks in any sport. The suffering started against the Yankees in 2004, and it has been on ever since. Regardless of the quality of their players or their performance throughout the year, it all ends in October. It is not a single game or one moment to the fans of Twins, but it is an inhuman tradition. The start of every new postseason is full of hope, and the end is full of silence followed by disbelief. To compound matters, most of those losses have been at the hands of one and the same team, the Yankees, which has become nearly mythical and treated Minnesota like it is a disease. It is no longer a sharp pain, but a heavy one, lingering, the heaviness of a curse that no one can fairly describe. New York Mets. The Mets have been unlucky in numerous ways, but Game 5 of the 2015 World Series has hurt the team more than any other unfortunate incident. Years of reconstruction were over. The new age began. Young pitchers and mad fanatics who were eager to win. Matt Harvey came to the mound that evening and threw a gem. He pleaded to remain in until the 9th inning and would see it through. The crowd roared in approval. But baseball is meant to be prideful. Harvey permitted a walk and then a double, and all of a sudden, the Royals equalized the game. Kansas City would end up winning in extra innings, and with that, the miracle run of the Mets would end. It was the ideal metaphor of Mets history, brilliance that was spoiled by misery. To a fan base that currently exists on resilience, 2015 is a scar which still stings. Texas Rangers. Talk to any Rangers fan about pain, and he or she will mention the year 2011. World Series Game 6 is one of the most tragic games in MLB history. Twice, once was it, the Rangers were one swing away to their first championship. On both occasions, the Cardinals were on the defensive. The legendary triple by David Freese tied the game, and the 11th inning walk-off homer by David Freese was the deciding factor against Texas. Rangers lost Game 7, as a matter of fact. Their title dreams were over the previous night. That game is the story about everything in baseball heartbreak, how happiness can be transformed to despair within the blink of an eye. It is more than the loss to the fans of Texas. It is an open wound that did not quite heal. Toronto Blue Jays. The golden age of the Toronto Blue Jays occurred in the early 1990s, and it brought consecutive wins, however. Their misfortune happened many years later, in 2015. Toronto appeared to be an invincible force after the legendary bat flip of Jose Bautista in the ALDS. The city thought fate had returned. However, in the ALCS, the Kansas City Royals killed the dream. Unpopular decisions, dropped chances, and failures of the team in late games brought home Toronto with no gifts. The defeat was made worse by the fact that it was their supposed comeback, their restoration into greatness. To Blue Jays fans, 2015 was a wake-up call that baseball does not give a thought to momentum or emotion. It was an ugly climax to a wonderful career, and the reverberating effect of that lost opportunity is still in the soul of Canadian baseball. Washington Nationals. The worst experience of the Washington Nationals was when they faced the St. Louis Cardinals in the NLDS in 2012. The Nationals were one strike short in the 9th inning of Game 5 of their way to go. The Nationals Park crowd was a buzzing one, as it already rejoiced over what appeared to be a certainty. But baseball had other plans. The Cardinals came back with 4 runs and shut down the stadium. It was the type of defeat which leaves you with a numbing feeling, a defeat which haunted Washington years after years. The Nationals did not win the championship until 2019, when they finally cast out those demons. That night in 2012, however, is still a sore that has also taught its fans the greatest lesson of all, which is that in baseball, it never ends until it ends. In a nutshell, every fan base has its scars. All the stadiums are echoing with heartbreak. Baseball is not constructed of perfection, it is constructed of failure, of a never-ending quest of redemption. These are the sadistic moments that make the fans be attached to their teams. They teach us that being loyal is not judged by the amount of trophies you have won, but by the manner in which you take the losses. Since Bartman to Buckner, blown saves to shattered dreams, all the heartaches are woven in the great tapestry of baseball. Since in this game, the pain is a bit momentary, love of your team, of your colors, of the game itself is eternal. Thanks for watching the video. If you like the video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon to get the notifications of our upcoming videos. See you in the next video. Stay tuned.